Zimbabwean voters cast their ballots in a historic election, the first without deposed former president Robert Mugabe. Thousands in the Ethiopian diaspora convene in Washington for Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's first U.S. visit. And how a non-governmental organization is helping wives of Boko Haram terrorists seek a fresh start. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gidu. It's in for Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Tonight we're covering two Africa elections. Officials in Mali are counting the votes from Sunday's presidential election, marred by violence, rocket attacks, threats and suspected fake polling places. President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta is seeking a second term. 24 other candidates are challenging him. We'll have more on that story shortly. But first, we begin in Zimbabwe, where voters are choosing a new president Monday in the first election in 38 years without longtime leader Robert Mugabe on the ballot as the head of the ZANU-PF party. Some 5.6 million voters are casting their ballots at the polls, a historic moment they hope will finally vanquish the nation of its outcast status and trigger a recovery in its broken-down economy. For Zimbabwe to be welcomed back into the international community, shed painful sanctions and secure the donor funding it needs to halt chronic cash shortages, election observers must sign off on the vote as being credible. The two main candidates are 75-year-old President Emmerson Mnangagwa, a longtime Mugabe ally, and 40-year-old Nelson Chamisa, a lawyer and a pastor. On Sunday, Mugabe emerged from 8 months of obscurity since the military ousted him in a bloodless coup to announce he would vote for the opposition, surprising Mnangagwa, who accused him of striking a deal with Chamisa. Mugabe's resignation has inspired a rush of first-time presidential aspirants who say that without Mugabe on the ballot, it's an exciting opportunity to try to bring change to their political system. VOA's Anita Powell has more from Harare.
The two frontrunners aren't the only new faces on Zimbabwe's historic ballot. Independent candidate Evaristo Washington Chikanga is number 3 on the presidential ballot, under frontrunner Emmerson Mnangagwa of the ruling ZANU-PF party and opposition challenger Nelson Chamisa. He knows his campaign, which he estimates cost him about $6,000, may not prevail. But he says he couldn't pass up this historic poll.
In the past, people were forced or intimidated into voting for particular candidates. Right now, people are just searching, and probably that's the goodness of this multi-party democracy and why we have so many presidential candidates. People are searching and looking, and they are telling us that they are tired of the system, the 38 years of suffering.
Chamisa has also tried to promote this message.
People are voting for the new. People are voting for the young. People are voting for a new Zimbabwe in authentic and genuine terms.
And so has Mnangagwa, the man who for decades served alongside Mugabe and took over when he resigned.
No one who is honest will say things are not changing.
But not fast enough, some candidates say. Tendai Ndora moved back from New Jersey, where she lived for 32 years, to run for parliament as an independent in Harare's most contested district, Hatfield. Her campaign, she says, cost about $15,000.
November 2017 actually gave us an opportunity to change the trajectory of our country, both politically and economically, and we are very positive. And I'm hoping that, we are going to get to where we need to get, or we hope for our next generation.
It's a tough race, the new candidates say, but it's the most exciting one in Zimbabwe's history. Anita Powell, VOA News,
Well done,
Harare.
Wonderful.
Most people in Zimbabwe are unemployed, stranded with little or no money to feed their families. Here's Africa 54's Paul Ndiho in Harare.
Timothy Ngolobe is a university graduate and unemployed. He makes a living hawking on the streets.
The country situation is just bad, man, because now you go to the bank, any bank, Cabs, Standard Chartered, whatever, you don't find cash, you know. But if you go outside the bank, just on the door, you find the cash.
Like many of his generation, he hopes that the cash crisis will be one of the first things tackled by whoever forms the next government.
This is the bank and the ATMs are dry. You can't get any cash out of those ATMs. So what people have done is to resort to selling money on the streets.
Let me see how easy it is to exchange money on the road.
I thought you said you were going to give me 65.
There is a conspiracy between the banks who have the cash and the vendors who sell it through unofficial channels. Cash transactions have significantly gone up because of long lines of people waiting to withdraw money from their banks. Richard Varensa says that it's tough feeding his family and wants a better Zimbabwe after the elections.
We have got a serious crisis in Zimbabwe. We are sleeping in queues, there's no cash. Somehow we are being given 50 bonds or 100 bonds. So it's very rare, it's very tough for me to survive with the families.
Zimbabwe, in effect, has more than 3 parallel currencies: the rare US dollar, bond notes, and electronic transfers. Francis Machibe, another Harare resident, says higher interest rates are eating into people's savings, especially for small transactions. And sometimes the locals pay over 45% interest rates per transaction.
If you have got money in your bank, you can transfer to your EcoCash. Then the EcoCash guys there can charge you at 35% to 45%.
But for vendors, they argue that EcoCash is the reason why many Zimbabweans can still pay their bills and buy groceries. While mobile money transfers have been a success in many African countries, Zimbabwe was forced to adapt to EcoCash due to severe shortage of hard currency and banks running out of cash. For Tinyishana Toko, a vendor who lives in one of the high-density suburbs of Harare, the situation could not be dire.
At least if we could have cash, hard cash of our hard currency here, which will be accessible to all vendors who will be ordering our stuff at low cost, then selling them cheaply and selling in volumes. But now we are facing a lot of challenges in selling our wares. Hence, we are forced to buy cash for survival only, not for business.
Financial analysts say for Zimbabwe to fix this currency crisis, the authorities would need to restore confidence in the country's financial system. As supporters for the MDC alliance, the main opposition party and ruling party head to the ballot, the question is whether the voters will hold the incumbent president responsible for the ongoing cash crisis or give him the benefit of the doubt.
Paul Ndiho, VOA News, downtown Harare.
In Mali, voters went to the polls Sunday in what's widely expected to be the first round of Mali's presidential elections. The atmosphere was calm as voters cast their ballots in the capital, Bamako, but Timbuktu, Kidal, and Mopti reported violent incidents that prevented some people from casting their vote. The top 2 candidates running for head of state are incumbent Ibrahim Boubacar Keita and his main challenger, Soumaïla Cissé. If neither man wins more than 50% of the vote, there will be a second vote on August 12th. Results of Sunday's vote may be known by Wednesday, although a final result is not expected until Friday. Mali's vote is crucial for the international community led by France and the United States, which is using the country as a cornerstone for its fight against terrorist groups in the region. Neighbors such as Burkina Faso, Mauritania, and Niger, which are also affected by Mali's instabilities, as they have hosted tens of thousands of refugees since the country's conflict began in 2012, are also closely watching the outcome. Another big story we are following is the visit to the United States by Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Abiy spoke to thousands of members of the diaspora here in Washington on Saturday. The Prime Minister's trip coincides with the recent easing of tensions between Ethiopia and Eritrea. Here's VOA's Joe Craig.
Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says he wants to bridge the gap between his government and American diaspora communities. In his remarks to a crowded Washington, D.C. convention hall, Abiy invited the diaspora to come to Ethiopia and change the country for the better, not just for themselves, but for future generations. He also asked Ethiopians in exile to bring light to America.
He cannot do everything by himself. So he needs the support of everybody, and I'm hoping that everybody will support him too.
Abiy has been in office for less than 4 months, following the abrupt resignation of his predecessor. And he's been busy, releasing political prisoners, lifting the country's state of emergency, restoring mobile internet in the regions, and working to liberalize the economy. Those aren't the only changes. Abiy and Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki signed a declaration of peace earlier this month, ending a 2-decade-old military standoff over a border dispute. Flights from Ethiopia to Eritrea have resumed, and embassies have reopened.
I never say like Ethiopia and Eritrea separate. We thought we are always together. Now we are together officially too. I love it.
Eritreans also attended the Washington event. Some said they were pleased to see Abiy, but wished their own president would implement similar reforms.
In Eritrea, you have no constitution, no freedom of religion, no freedom of expression, no freedom of business enterprise. It's all run by one person.
Abiy is scheduled to meet with diaspora communities in Los Angeles and Minneapolis next.
I am very excited. I'm very speechless. It's a very good sign for our country, and he's very great. I'm sure he's going to make us a great country.
Ethiopians comprise the second largest group of African immigrants in the United States after Nigerians. And the largest concentration of Ethiopians outside Ethiopia is found in the Washington, D.C. area. Jill Craig, VOA News, Washington.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook. So check us out and share our show with your friends. Till ahead on Africa 54, wives of Boko Haram terrorists seek a new start. But first, a look at Monday's headlines.
President Robert Mugabe cast his vote in the presidential elections after hinting he may vote for opposition leader Nelson Chamisa. In Mali, voters wait for the final result of Sunday's election to see if President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta will receive another term in office. In the Comoros, opponents of the referendum to extend President Azali Assoumani's term limits vandalized a polling station in Moroni. In Egypt, a court in Cairo orders 75 death sentences for Islamists guilty of killing policemen and vandalizing property after President Mohamed Morsi was ousted in 2013. Finally, in Kenya, an astronomer installs a telescope to observe the longest blood moon eclipse in a century.
The wives of slain Boko Haram militants are often left to fend for themselves after their husbands are killed or arrested by Nigerian security forces. Now, a local non-governmental organization in Nigeria is helping these women become financially independent. Chika Odua reports from Maiduguri.
Inside these walls is a group of women whom many fear. Wives of Boko Haram terrorists. But now they're trying to dissociate themselves from the radical Islamist sect and move on with their lives. Here, they're learning about how to save money and how to start a business cooperative. Aisha Ali's husband, a Boko Haram member, was killed by Nigerian security forces. Her life has not been easy since then, but she hopes she can master weaving.
This training that I am receiving will help me and my children, and if possible, help me take them to school and end my suffering.
Like Aisha, many of these women do not know the extent of their husbands' crimes and involvement with Boko Haram. Most are now widows and are left to fend for themselves, since their neighbors are often too afraid to even interact with them.
People are afraid. Some people, because of who they think my husband was, they won't even like to help me.
To help the women, the Future Prowess Foundation not only teaches business skills, it also runs a school for some of their children.
Of them, their parents were killed in their presence. First, at the beginning of any session, before any enrollment, we try to organize a trauma session for the new ones that will be enrolled, plus their mothers.
The school operates on trust and confidentiality, so teachers do not disclose information about which students are the children of Boko Haram members. Back at the training center, widows of Boko Haram members work alongside widows of men who were killed by Boko Haram. But getting the women to sit together was a challenge. All were required to participate in a psychosocial support program to talk about the violence they experienced.
So that they can mingle with each other. This is what happened, this is how it happened, and this is how you guys have to play with each other. This one is not the one that killed you, this one is not the one that killed this.
The women hope these small steps will give them a fresh start, taking them away from a life of terror and violence to a life of financial security and belonging. Chika Odua for VOA News in Maiduguri, Nigeria.
Here in the United States, intrigue surrounding the Justice Department's Russia probe has risen once again amid reports President Donald Trump's former attorney is claiming Trump knew in advance of a 2016 meeting his top campaign staff and close family members held with Russians, promising negative material on then Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. VOA's Michael Bowman has the details.
Michael Cohen, for years known as Donald Trump's legal fixer, made headlines when news broke that he had secretly recorded Trump discussing a payment to a former Playboy magazine model. News reports say Cohen, now cooperating with federal investigators, has made an explosive allegation that then candidate Trump knew beforehand that his son-in-law, and campaign manager met at Trump Tower in New York with Russian operatives to acquire dirt on Hillary Clinton. The allegation has not been corroborated, and Trump has long denied any knowledge of the meeting. Trump's legal team is going on the offensive against Cohen.
I don't know what happened to him. A few months ago, he wasn't telling all these lies. A few months ago, I didn't know he was a lawyer who tape recorded his client secretly.
The president is weighing in as well, tweeting, quote, "I did not know of the meeting with my son, Don Jr." Sounds to me like someone is trying to make up stories in order to get himself out of an unrelated jam. But while the special counsel in the Russia probe, Robert Mueller, is silent about where the investigation is headed, others are trying to connect the dots. The top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, tweeted, quote, "If Trump knew about the June 9th meeting, this is the chronology. The Russians offered Trump help. Trump approved getting Russian help. The Russians delivered help. Trump dictated a false statement about the true purpose of the meeting. Trump covered up his own role." A Republican on the Senate Intelligence Committee says the news media's focus on Trump's past is distracting the nation from a present danger.
But we also have to be very aware that the Russians are trying to be able to interfere in our election every other way they can, to be able to harvest information and then to be able to use that against our democracy. That demands sanctions. That demands immediate response from our government.
The special counsel investigation has yielded multiple indictments against former Trump confidants. Several others once close to the president, like Michael Cohen, are believed to be cooperating with federal prosecutors, probing a wide range of Trump's dealings and activities. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington. Now
to the wildfires wreaking havoc across Northern California. The confirmation of the deaths of a great-grandmother and her 2 great-grandchildren has increased the death toll to 5 from a growing wildfire devastating the region. The 70-year-old and her 2 great-grandchildren, ages 5 and 4, were stranded in their home Thursday when walls of flame swept through their property. 2 firefighters have also lost their lives fighting the blaze. The U.S. President Donald Trump has declared a state of emergency for the entire state of California as raging wildfires threaten thousands of homes. The president made the declaration Saturday in a move that makes federal funds available to help fight the fires and aid the recovery process. The White House said the president's declaration ordered federal assistance to supplement state, tribal, and local response efforts due to the emergency conditions. A major fire is burning in the popular Yosemite National Park, forcing its closure through end of next week. And welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. This landfill in Addis Ababa is called Repi or Koshe, words that mean dirty in Amharic. Now it's being turned into a source of energy by generating the methane rising from rotting waste to boost electricity supply on the national grid. Since 2013, the government and British company Cambridge Industries Limited have been developing the country's first waste-to-energy facility next to the 50-year-old dump site. The plant is part of a $150 billion strategy launched in November 2011 with the dual objectives of making Ethiopia a middle-income economy by 2025 while keeping greenhouse gas emissions constant. Next up, a Me Too-inspired online chatbot is using artificial intelligence to tackle workplace harassment. Spot lets users report and log instances of workplace harassment for discrimination without the need to talk to a psychologist or human resources officer. Users can stay anonymous or identify themselves. A chat can take as little as 10 minutes. Users are advised to create reports as soon as possible while their memory is still fresh. Once it's complete, users are emailed a time-stamped report of the conversation that could be used as evidence in the future. And in other artificial intelligence news, over 2 million Rwandans have registered with Babel Healthcare, an artificial intelligence-powered digital service that's able to diagnose health conditions and prescribe medicines. It's the first country to make the technology available nationwide. The company's software is claimed to be so advanced, it has demonstrated the ability to provide healthcare advice that's on par with practicing clinicians. The consultation costs 200 Rwandan francs, or about 20 cents of a dollar, thanks to subsidies by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and a partnership between Babel and the Rwandan government. And that's what's trending today. Now, superheroes in comic books and American pop culture have become increasingly diverse, but fans and creators say more work needs to be done, especially on the big screen, to fully represent American society. But Hollywood is already looking beyond the U.S. as it tries to capitalize on the popularity of superheroes. VOA's Elizabeth Lee reports.
Whether it's in the movies, comic books, or video games, fans say diversity has become the norm. Overwatch is Emmeline Yee's favorite video game.
I appreciate that they put a Chinese character in that game, and the fact that she's a scientist and she's smart, she's helping save the world.
For many African-American movie fans, the film Black Panther was a milestone.
So when Black Panther came out, I was so excited, and to see that my future children have something to look up to.
But some fans and comic book creators say diversity is still lacking in film.
Print, I think, tends to be able to kind of get away with that first and kind of test the waters.
But comic book superheroes have not always been so diverse.
The initial wave of superheroes of the 1930s and 40s is predominantly male and almost exclusively white.
And most minority characters were almost always based on stereotypes.
The African Americans were always drawn with big white lips, which is just horrible. And the Asian characters were usually, their skin tone was yellow, which is just weird. They were usually the menace.
But then came superheroes that appeared to symbolize minorities.
The first characters of color, the first superpowered characters of color in the Marvel Universe are green and orange. The Hulk is readily sort of understandable as a kind of complicated allegory for race as a sort of figured through ideas of monstrosity.
In the 1960s, Black Panther became the first black superhero in the Marvel Universe. It's a character that is now capturing the imagination of modern-day fans in the U.S. through film.
We actually saw Black Panther a couple of different times on opening day because it was so good, and we were really glad to see that something that was related to somebody that we could relate to was done really well.
But whether audiences outside the U.S., especially China, the second largest film market, can relate to films of non-white characters is debatable.
A lot of the times I do hear that China doesn't want to see black people, like other people of color. Hollywood doesn't think that, diverse stories could sell overseas, so they make less of it and they don't give chances to diverse stories that could be good.
But if the success of Marvel's Avengers Infinity War in China is any indication, audiences around the world are more than happy to watch superheroes, whether they're black, green, or white. Elizabeth Lee, VOA News, San Diego.
Geraint Thomas of Britain won his first Tour de France title on Sunday, finishing a full 1 minute 51 seconds over second-place finisher Tom Dumoulin. Thomas had been a support rider on Team Sky before becoming the winner of grueling sporting event, the first Welshman to do so. Thomas' teammate, four-time champion Chris Froome, finished third, more than 2 minutes behind him. Thomas says the dream was always to participate, and that dream came true 11 years ago. The 32-year-old began his career in track cycling, helping Britain win gold medals in team pursuit at the 2008 and 2012 Olympics before turning his attention to road racing. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC Monday through Friday. Thanks for watching and good night from Washington.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A lot of American English idioms refer to parts of the body.
Get off on the wrong foot.
Are Anna and Jonathan having trouble learning a dance? How did it go meeting your girlfriend's family?
Well, it was interesting. First, I was really late.
Oh, Jonathan.
Yeah, and then at dinner I spilled my water all over